Hello, welcome back to Commodity Corner for Friday, May 30th. It is the end of the month, so we will be able to address what took place in the month, and our monthly charts will be a little bit more applicable. So we're going to start with cotton. As you can see, cotton had an inside month. Last month, our range was 69.75 by 60.80. This month, our range was 69.10 by 64.51. So we had a classic inside month. Looking out at the weekly, we can tell that the range is still intact. Cotton really isn't doing anything. You could say that it's a snooze fest. We'll address fundamental outlook when we need to, but for now, we're going to stick to just basic technicals. Moving on to coffee. On the monthly, coffee had an inside month. It was a relatively large month, the month of April, where we were at 418.90 by 325.20. The month of May, we were at 339.30 by 341.20. A relatively large range for the month. We also had an outside week. It looks like the uptrend is potentially getting challenged, where we could see prices come down to about 310, and then we'll figure out where we go from there. On the daily, obviously, the daily is going to be telling you the same story, where you can see that we're definitely having a more of an outside week. 324 looks like your first line of the sand. 325. And then we'll figure out where we go from there. Let's go to cocoa. A lot of these commodities had some interesting moves. Cocoa had an outside, had a relatively wide month of April. Our range was 9,500 by 76.56. In the month of May, we were at 11,280 by 8445. We had an outside week. Cocoa is definitely getting more on the bullish side of things. It is relatively bullish on the monthly, but it's starting to get its groove back. We had an inside week. We poked out, but we did get back. We are in a little bit of a massive chop zone over here, so I would be very careful if you're even looking at it. Moving on to cotton. Cotton inside month as well as an inside week. Our range for the month of April was 69.75 by 60.80, whereas this month, in the month of May, we were at 69.10 by 64.51. It's been relatively range bound on the weekly, as you can see. It's not really doing much. It's more of a snooze fest. Let's move on to sugar. We're not going to let me look at the daily here because, again, it's very, very range bound. Looking out at sugar. Sugar, outside month. Relatively smaller month compared to what we've seen in the past. Our range for this month was 1829 by 1681, whereas last month it was a wider range at 1963 by 1720. Is looking more on the bearish side. You can see when you go a little bit more granular onto the weekly that it is definitely leaning towards down. Now, just something to keep in mind, sugar and crude. Well, sugar follows crude. So just if crude prices are dropping, sugar prices should go down as well. Not always, but they should. Let's look at our favorite, orange juice. That's always a fun one. Orange juice, again, inside week as well. Last month was relatively wide. We were at 322.75 by 203.80, whereas in the month of May, we were 295.05 by 218.75. It is bearish. I mean, really bearish. Looking at the weekly, inside week, but again, it's very bearish looking for those of you that look at orange juice. Let's move on now to energy first. Now, coming up tomorrow, there is an OPEC meeting. So crude, there was a lot of action in crude the past 2 days. A lot of it was book squaring ahead of it. So just something to keep in mind. There should be some volatility in it on Monday, just because it'll be after the announcement. The rumors are that OPEC is going to be increasing production, which will be bearish prices. The analyst community is looking for about 400,000 barrels per day of increase. It looks like OPEC is going to go higher than that and heavier than that. And that caused a lot of the move that we saw the past 2 days. We're in wait and see mode. Obviously, because of the meeting, crude really did nothing the whole month. We had the original April announcement, which definitely blew prices to the downside. Now that we're sitting in May, waiting for this meeting tomorrow, Saturday, May 31st, everybody's in wait and see mode. There was book squaring ahead of it. You can see it more on the daily. It's a little more pronounced where we had this big wide ranging bars the past 2 days. But again, we really did nothing only because of the fact that we have this meeting coming up. Obviously, gasoline and heating oil should look the same because they are byproducts of crude. So let's just take a look what those look like technically. Again, you could see very suppressed on the monthly, and gasoline very suppressed. You could see it on the weekly. We did break down a little bit. At one point, we did break down twice this week. We were under $2. But again, we are relatively suppressed. Demand is not there, or at least is not where you would expect it to be. Looking out at heating oil, also same type of deal. If you look out at the monthly, again, suppressed, not really doing anything ahead of this meeting. Look out at the weekly, we did break down. We did break $2 twice. Daily looks a little bit more bearish. All of energy pretty much looks bearish from the crude standpoint. Even natural gas as well. Natural gas is also looking very bearish technically. Natural gas had some big moves this week, but the reality is on the month, it did nothing. It was an inside month. Completely engulfed by April. So we really did nothing there. There's nothing you could see on the monthly. The weekly was, again, we had a wide ranging bar. I would say we were basically in line with what we did last week. We're doing a whole heck of a lot of nothing. So I wouldn't get too excited about it. Let's move on to something that some people watch, some people don't watch. We're going to look at the grain markets. Let's look at soybeans first. And then we'll move on to wheat and corn, and then we'll end on metals. So you could see on the monthly, very small range. We really did nothing. A lot of times agricultural products are not that exciting. They don't really, when there's volatility, they move. When there's no volatility, they pretty much can put you to sleep. We did have some nice moves in the bean space this week, though. It was tradable. I'm not going to tell you that it was blockbuster, but it was tradable. Let's look at wheat. Wheat literally did nothing this entire month. It's completely stuck in the mud in this range. The range from April, just for yourselves, was 556 3/4 by 505. This month's range, 556 1/4 by 506 1/4 by 506 1/4. So we really just did nothing. We have back-to-back months of doing literally nothing. So I'm not even going to continue on with it because it's just there's nothing to discuss. Let's look at corn. I don't want to waste your time. Corn did poke lower. Looks like it may be breaking down. Maybe it gets to 400 or $4. I'm not sure, honestly. It definitely looks technically like it wants there. If you look over here, you can see on this monthly that there's a whole mess of support going back in the 370, 380 to 390 area. We look like we may be going back there. So just keep that on the radar. It's not really a good intraday product. It's more something to hold for a few days because it doesn't really have enough juice in it to really keep you engaged. So that's the ag space. Let's finally look at metals. Let's go and start with platinum first. Platinum was exciting last week. Let's see what platinum did this week. Platinum had a big week. Let's not kid ourselves. Platinum had a ginormous week. The funny thing is on the monthly, when you put it into context, it's doing nothing. Look at this. It's really just doing absolutely nothing on a monthly basis. However, the weekly tells a different story. because we completely blasted through this area. Kissed 1100 on the daily looks even more rock starish. If you look at that, this is just a rock star move. The funny thing about this move that started on 19th, which was last 2 weeks ago on Monday, you could see we just rocketed up. This was so clean. It was unbelievably clean. It was literally like the rock star of metals last week. Let's take a look at everybody's favorite, gold, because I know everybody likes to look at gold. Who doesn't love gold, right? What's that saying? I love gold, right? Let's look at gold. Now, we had the roll this week in gold, so prices might be a little bit off just because we had the roll. Gold still looks bullish. Technically, on the monthly, it's still going. Inside week, obviously, a lot of it has to do a lot with the roll as well, but inside week on the monthly, it's bullish. On the daily, it's okay. It's holding where it needs to. If you're looking for it, it's holding to where it needs to. Let's look at silver, and we'll end off with copper. The industrial metals are really not doing much. They're not really giving you clues on anything. You could see on the monthly that we're really just not doing anything in silver. The month of April was huge, but that's not going to be an aberration, well, across the board. But you could see that we had an inside week, really didn't do much here. We just inside week, like I said, we're just not doing anything. The daily looks even more hellacious. This is just a mess. There's nothing to do here. We'll end off with copper. Copper, again, industrial metals, they're just not doing anything. You could see on the daily, it's clear as day. I'm not saying it's not treatable. All I'm saying is that we're just doing nothing. So just be aware of that. They're not breaking out. They're not breaking down. They're just not doing anything. With that being said, I hope you had a great week. I hope you enjoyed your week. I hope you find some value in these recordings. There will be some individual names coming out later on this week. We'll have natural gas and cotton coming out. And we look forward to seeing you. Have a great weekend.